Hello, and welcome to Transformation Horizon. I am Judy Oyedeli, an organizational health strategist and executive coach.
And I'm Sasha Farley, a neuroscience based remote work consultant. In each episode, we discuss how to integrate human flourishing into the ways we work, helping both people and organizations thrive together.
So, join us as we explore our transformation horizon.
Yay.
Sasha! Okay, here we are again. Very exciting. So, it's been a little bit. Tell me what's been going on? What's been giving you energy lately?
Oh, that's such a good question. So I am hoping to move soon. So I've been getting a lot of energy from the beach lately because I'm going to be moving probably away from the beach. So I have been spending a lot of time just sitting on the sand, the waves, the sun, the palm trees, the wind. All of that has been giving me a lot of energy lately. And it's just like a fantastic place because, like, no matter how stressed you are, if you go to the beach, it just like triggers this calming place. There's actually some research that does literally trigger calming things in your brain. So, and it works from an anecdotal experience, I can tell you. So, it's been giving me a lot of like refreshing energy, which is really nice these days. What
Right.
about you?
Oh, refreshing. That is the name of the game. Before I answer though, one one of the things that I love and I still have is one specific track of ocean waves. For some reason, this one specific track is the most relaxing ocean waves to me. But like, yes, like the neuroscience and all that stuff, like it really does like center and calm. What's been
I'd
giving
also
me
just love that you have a saved track of that specific way.
I download it when I'm on a plane, when I'm somewhere without Wi-Fi or without signal, I'm good. I got
You're
my
like, I must have access.
I
I love that.
yes. Like, I am prepared.
Maybe I should do that when I leave, being able to just go to the beach. Send
Oh
it
my
to me.
gosh, Sasha, you should just like go and record your ocean waves. And I'll be like,
That's a great
oh,
idea, actually.
I'm in Puerto Rico with you. Oh, that'd be so nice. Okay, no, I love this question, even though I'm the one who asked it. But it's like one of the things that I've been really thinking about this year is generating energy. So, a couple things have been giving me energy, helping generate energy for me this year. And you might not be surprised because you know me so well. One of them is the library.
I'm shocked. By the way, guys, shocked.
So shocked, I know. So I went to it's not really a resolution because I don't do resolutions, but I went to the library and I decided, you know what? I'm gonna stop reading on my phone. I'm gonna actually go to the library and get a paper book. I'm going to wander around the stacks and see and just start picking stuff up and reading the cover. And it was actually quite lovely. I got 4 books, and now my practice let's see how long I can keep it up. I'm really, like, trying to be as dedicated as possible to this, but now my practice is that those are my bedtime books, and about, like, an hour and a half before I actually wanna fall asleep, I stop and just read my bedtime books, and they've been really, really good. And I think that's another thing that I'm trying to be more intentional about this year is sleep. My sleep hygiene was trash at the end of last year, absolute garbage. So I think it's really important. Like I think I was underestimating it, and I know that many people underestimate it. You can't catch up on sleep. It's one of the things that you have to be the most, how would I say this, unreasonably belligerent about is your sleep and getting the sleep that you need because you can't do anything and you're useless to everyone, including yourself, if you're not well rested and you haven't had enough sleep, haven't had good sleep. So that's one of the things that I'm going to be working on this year is being unreasonably belligerent about getting the right kind and the appropriate amount of sleep. And my hope is that that will support me in generating energy this year.
I love that. All the things. I read every night before I go to bed on my Kindle because I travel too much for hard paper books. But I had flashbacks to my youth going through the stacks like that. So I used to do it when I was a kid all the
That's
time.
exactly what it reminded me of. I was like, "Am I in high school again?" Where, like,
Yeah.
the only thing I ever did was go to the fancy library 2 towns over? Like But yeah, it's a nice throwback to a simpler time, and the books have been helping. It's been nice to just wander around. Yeah.
I love that for you. You gotta, like, send me a video so I can live vicariously through you wandering the stacks. POV view.
So you want me to the thing
Take a video. Get out of the moment and get your technology so that I can get in the moment with you.
okay, all right, yeah, yeah. How selfish of me to leave you out of the
I
moment.
mean, put the phone aside. That's so rude. I mean, really.
Oh my god.
Oh my gosh. Obviously, clearly, please do not do that.
I mean, who knows? Maybe I will.
Now you're gonna do it just because.
I know,
I
right?
put it in your head. You're
I
not
am.
gonna think about it next time you're there.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Let's get to our question for today. So we have a question about, given all of the return to office mandates and other changes people are putting into where and how we work. This question around how can we design the way we work to actually support health, focus, and fulfillment versus quietly feeling like I'm being stressed out and pushed to burnout. I feel like a lot of us understand this question and have had feelings of this nature of various purposes, whether we're being forced back to the office or not. What do you got, Judy? Anything come up for you when you hear this question?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is design. How can we design the way that we work to actually support health, focus, fulfillment, all those things? How can we design the way that okay. Let's diagram this sentence actually. How can we design the way that we work? Let's start there. The way that we work is designed and it creates results by design. So if the results we're getting is burnout, unfulfillment, lack of flourishing, that was designed that way. So I think, first of all, taking a design perspective to this problem is going to be the game changer here. It's not a simple problem to solve. It's not a widget that's just out of order and we need to change one thing and everything will be fine. It's a whole systems design challenge. So, this is actually something that lots of my clients, I would say lots, many of my clients have been realizing and they're trying to understand how do we they want this. They want to have workplaces. They want to be leaders in workplaces that are not just designed to stress people out, burn them out, especially given what we talked about last episode. In the external environment, there's enough stressors, there's enough things that burn people out. How can we design our workplaces so that we can do good work without running ourselves into the ground? So, one of the things that I think about when I'm thinking about the design of how we do our work is where does that all start? What is it aligned around? Comes back to strategic planning. What's the plan? Do we have a plan? What okay, maybe we have a plan, but then for my team, for my department, for me, how does that then translate into what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis? So, one of the things that I helped a client with last year is they had done strategic planning before and they were damn good at it. They were able to create a strategic plan that was really grounded in who they are as an organization, made sense for where they were trying to go, but what they realized was that when it actually came to, like, the day-to-day of executing on the plan, it didn't necessarily resonate for their actual staff. The staff were like, "Yeah, we have a strategic plan," but you would ask them, "Okay, what's in it? How does the work that you do contribute to it?" They're like, "I don't know. I'm just doing my job." There was a disconnect there, and when there's that disconnect between the larger strategy of where you're headed and what you're doing and what everyone in their day to day, week to week is actually working on. That's a recipe for just continuing divergence and extra tasks, extra projects that have nothing to do with our strategy or maybe are tangentially related, but actually not that much of a priority. Or my favorite thing, ooh, shiny. The new shiny thing that comes along and, "Oh my gosh, we have to do something around this." So, figuring out how do you make that really strong connection, totally intermingled. your larger strategy and the actual work that people are doing on a day-to-day basis. For some organizations, they've been able to figure this out. For others, especially if you're in a more mission-driven community benefit, you're working in communities, that type of work, it can be really hard, or it can be a little trickier to make that day-to-day connection between them. It is worthy work to do because that is how you ensure that you're able to say no to things. I wrote an article last year. You're like, "Oh, saying no." I wrote an article last year about how good strategy requires grieving because it requires you to say no to things. It requires you to stop certain things. And learning how to stop things, say no to things intentionally, close doors, close chapters can be really, really challenging. It's something that we don't have a lot of practice with. But again, if you're trying to design a healthy organization that doesn't push people to burnout, doesn't push people to unnecessary stress, you have to build the practice of becoming really good at saying no, of closing doors, closing chapters, ending things. That's my initial thoughts on this, Joshua. What's coming up for you around this question?
Yeah, so I'm just gonna plus one the needing to learn as a system and a culture to say no is the thing that is needed to make sure that you can make and create workloads that are manageable regardless of what your design is.
Mm,
And it's one of the things that I think I see the most cultures, leaders, people struggle with. And it is a thing that literally I put a lot of time when I do strategic planning into the process of helping people say no. And I have had to package a no in very different ways to even get the system, no matter how much coaching it takes with some leaders, to just put something in the bucket of we are not doing that.
mhm,
It is like a mental blocker in terms of a lot of places, especially people who want to create connective and supportive environments. People feel sometimes saying no to someone's ideas or saying no to different things means you're shutting them down as a person, which
mhm,
is not true. You are just staying focused as an organization. All ideas are good ideas to think about, but not necessarily to put your resources, time, and energy into doing. And I think what she said is really important, especially in the framing of this question. How do we create designs that are healthy and balanced, basically? And the only way to do that is to have a manageable workload. And the only way to have a manageable workload is not to do everything that you could theoretically think about doing. It is impossible for any organization, even large Fortune 500 companies, even companies with like hundreds of thousands of employees across the world. They cannot do everything that they come up with. To that point, I think a really important element of how our brains work that is relevant here to helping understand how important manageable workload really is and the ways in which you can design the ways that you work together so that you can prevent stress and burnout is this concept of visualizing our energy levels within our brains and the energy patterns that we have. So basically, our brains, in very simplified versions, in terms of our ability to focus and put energy into something productive, it goes in waves. So it's literally like a wave chart that just keeps going over and over and over again in repetition. And that wave is not starts at 9 o'clock, peaks at 12, and ends at 5. That is not how that works. It peaks and valleys for it's not. I know, so surprising. It peaks and valleys at different times for different people. Some people will peak at 10 a.m. and then be at a low point at 11 and peak back up at 12. Or and sometimes you peak based on the activities that you're doing as well. Because if you do different activities and it uses a bunch of your brain power, like data analysis to me, I'm great at it, but it uses a lot of my brain power. As soon as I'm done, I'm done. Doesn't matter what time of day it is. Doesn't matter if it's 9 a.m. My brain's done. Understanding that I think is really key for understanding how to design the ways that we work better than how we currently do. Because right now, the ways that we have in most of our management practices, the ways most teams are structured, assumes that our energy level is a constant line and that it starts from whatever time your organization says that it starts to whatever time it says your organization's closing or time you're allowed to leave ends. That's what a lot of the assumption is, and that's just not the case. So when we talk about how to design with the brain in mind so that you can have a more healthy system that allows people to focus, allows people to have well-being, and allows people to feel fulfilled in their work, which is ultimately what we want, you have to create space and time for people to flex up and down and when and where they are putting their time and energy throughout the day. And a key point of this is recognizing the flexibility, not just within your 9 to 5 time period, but to really tap in. I know this is a way bigger step for a lot of organizations. To really tap in is to free people up to deflex however they want across the entire day, even nighttime,
Mm.
because some people actually peak. Some of their best work gets done at 2 a.m., which is not usually when you might be open, but that's when their brain works. And don't you want their best thoughts to be used in creating products, ideas, marketing, whatever you need for your company? You want their best brain working on it, and that might be 2 a.m. So what I tend to say is, especially with my remote work focus in the neuroscience aspect, is create as much flexibility as possible for people to be able to work when their brain is on and give them time to rest when their brain is off. So how do you do this specifically? Is to decrease the amount of synchronous work that you do. Synchronous work is work that you do when it requires people to be at the same place at the same time, not physically the same place, but a virtual meeting or a phone call where you're literally talking back and forth at the same time point. Limiting those and doing more asynchronous work where you can send something and someone has time to respond in their own time period. This is like text messages, emails. It is literally like shared documents, right? Where I draft something, I put a comment in there and someone else can respond to a comment later. Videos are asynchronous things because I record them and you guys are listening and watching to this later. This is an asynchronous way of communicating. They can be very effective ways to communicate very complex pieces of information. And so, as an organization, thinking and really challenging yourself to use more asynchronous tools to do the work that you need to do can then create the flexibility throughout the entire day for people to work when and where, but that's a whole other topic, works best for them. And so that is really key to helping people stay and structure your work in a focused manner. And it is a big design shift, as Judy called out in the beginning, right? It's a big conscious design shift that is frequently needed. And just that concept overall is something that you can start to implement as much as possible to really get away from this overburdened, overworked, burned out concepts that people are creating. And it's the way you design it into the way that you work so that it's always there and supported.
I love that. I don't know if you've read this book, but there was a book that I read that kind of touches on some of that and, like, helps with thinking through the different elements of what are the kind of building blocks of the design of especially remote work. It was called Remote Works. And it had a lot of really helpful like templates and stuff like that and ways to be thinking about, okay, what types of things are better and should be prioritized for synchronous work and what are the types of things that we need to move from synchronous to asynchronous. I think one of the biggest takeaways that I had from that book and from that resource was the idea of how being aligned around communication expectations is the linchpin, it's the glue that makes any of this work. And I it's funny that, like, it's something that I feel like, since 2020, since all the remote work stuff has really come more to the forefront and been really front and center in our minds, this idea of, like, internal communications, how we communicate, expectations around that has been more prominent. But guys, those it's not a new concept. Like, even when we were all in the office, there were still norms around communication. They were just never explicitly talked about. They were reinforced just through constant practice. There wasn't another way to do it really, so the way that we communicated was the way that we communicated. Now we have more options, and now we have to be more intentional about naming how are we going to communicate so that we are staying on the same page around these things, so that we're able to be flexible and people can work in the ways that they want and need to work and we can still get stuff done and still be, like, aligned and moving forward together. So, that's one book recommendation. I'm a book person, as you can see. I love my books. So, that's one book recommendation. It's really funny, I don't actually have that book on this shelf right now. I gave it back to my friend. So, I love that, Sasha. I think one other thing that I wanna point out around this that I think is really important to mention, we're talking about how do you design for this. Imma tell you, it starts with your top leader. So, going back to my strategic planning example, we had the strategic plan. It was beautiful. We were very excited about it. We had a lot of staff input in creating that strategic plan as well, so the staff were excited about it too. Now we get to the point, like I previewed before, where we're like, "Okay, so how are you gonna actually do this? And you, CEO of the company, there's some things on here that is your responsibility. Like, you're gonna be the one spearheading this. So you need to add that to your workload. What are you gonna be taking away?" I asked that question. He's looking at me like, "Oh, no, I don't know." I'm like, "Okay." So what we actually did was mapped out, how do you spend your time right now? It's something that he hadn't really done before. When we figured that out, and I had a specific template that I gave him, that helped turn that into actual numbers and actual, like, capacity percentages and capacity numbers for yourself. Hard numbers. Can't hide from the numbers. And he realized that he was at 143% of his capacity already. Like, with literally how many hours there were in the day and how many hours he could and was working, he was like, "Oh, that's why it feels like this." I'm like, "Yeah, you feel tired, don't you?" So, once we actually put it into numbers, what is your actual workload like? Like, instead of it being just ideas of, "Oh, I wanna do these 4 projects and I only maybe we'll stop doing this one," or, "Oh, I know I can add in this other project for the new strategic plan. It'll be fine, it'll be fine." Let's actually put some numbers on it, and then we can see, "No, it won't be fine." You will be working every Saturday and every Sunday for the next 2 years to get all of this done. You can't at some point, you have to take it from the really fun ideas to the actual hard numbers. We got 24 hours in a day, and remember, you need to sleep. Sleep is important. So, doing that work of and this is gonna be different for a lot of different organizations. A lot of the ones that I work with, there isn't a practice of tracking your time beyond, like, "I worked 8 hours today." Yeah, but what did you do with that time? Like, what takes up the most of your time? Have you ever, like, done an kind of an analysis of what are the things that where your time and energy is really going? Are you also accounting for that, buffer time where you have to switch between tasks, where you have to switch between different things, that you need time to walk around and, like, go to different places and jump on calls, all that stuff? Are you accounting for that? Are you accounting for, yeah, you do need to take a vacation. Yeah, you do need to do some professional development because it's helpful for you and helpful for everyone. When we actually look at those numbers, then it becomes a lot clearer of, "Oh, this is what it's really gonna take," and now I have more the helpful constraints to help you start saying no. And it has to be the top leaders who start that because it doesn't work bottom up. Like, you have to start it, and then it trickles from there.
Yeah, I really like how you point that out. So that brings up two things for me. One, any sort of design change, if we're talking about how you design the way that you work, requires leadership buy-in and input, not just buy-in and input as words, but literally buy-in and commitment to change their own behaviors so that the new design can actually work in practice. One of the reasons most org designs, mergers, all that sort of stuff have really big challenges is because the leaders themselves are not actually willing to change the behaviors as much as needed. And it actually interferes with the workers and employees and the people actually changing their behaviors as well because they're beholden to their leadership and their hierarchy structure that almost every organization still has. So yeah, start with the leaders, and the leaders need to really understand that if you want to go down this road, it requires you to change a lot of your own behaviors and sometimes some of your own mindsets. And that's a lot of the work that I do is actually starting with the leadership, with leadership training, coaching, different assessments to try to like adaptability assessments to understand their good at adapting and changing to uncertainty and change that they're going to be needing to lead. And then also where they might have blockers that might come up as we go through the process so that we can talk about them and be aware of them when we're in the emotional responses to not wanting to change. And so I think that's a really important piece of it. Adding on to that, I think, especially when we talk about tracking time, is an important element that I think a lot of us have forgotten and has not been a part of business conversations for a very long time, but is a key function in the way that our brains work that is required for any sort of job that requires critical thinking, creative problem solving, any of that sort of stuff, is the concept of our brains need to cycle through focused and diffuse thinking. So essentially, what that means is we have to focus on some piece of information for a period of time. to gather it, put it into our brain. But then to make meaning of it, we need to do something that does not require active, focused attention. So something that is sort of like a rot habitual activity, literally like going for a walk or doing your laundry or cooking dinner if you cook that doesn't need to focus. For me, that's not because I have to focus. Long other side tangent. But like something that doesn't require you to think and focus when you're doing it, you need that after you do focus thinking to let your brain make different connections and do that meaning making that you are being paid to do. And this is not just something that we talk about. This is something that like Thomas Edison has done. He famously has stories about him doing this, where he will focus on a problem, think about all the information he needs to have, and would literally hold a ball in his hand and just sit there doing nothing until he would drop the ball because he got so relaxed he'd kind of start napping. And he'd wake up, it'd wake him up, and he'd have ideas. Like this is not something that is just made up. It is true. We all experience this. Some people do it in the shower, some people do it on walks, and when we talk about what you use your time on in a paid workday, and I know this is going to sound insane, but technically, you need to be balancing in breaks. You need to be balancing in paid breaks during the time of the workday so that your brain can do nothing consciously, so that it can do a ton subconsciously to make meaning and provide that real value that you are actually paying people to do. So when we talk about tracking your time, when we talk about tracking all that sort of stuff, one thing that is always forgotten is literally building in chunks of time and sometimes big chunks of time, sometimes up to 2 or 3 hours a day of times broken up that you are doing nothing, that you are planning to do nothing. That isn't, I will be responding to emails during this time. That isn't, I will be doing an ad hoc conversation during this time. That isn't, I'll be catching up on the work I didn't finish yesterday at this time. It is literally time for your brain to just relax and think about stuff and connect things. Currently, our current work practices say that you can do this after work, which theoretically is true. That's why we have these things in the shower. You have wake up times, you have all these sort of things and time within the shower. But your brain can only hold so much information at a time. So if you are not taking breaks to let your brain process information, then you don't know which part of the thing you did in that 8, because usually we work 8.5, 9 hours, right? 9 hour, 8.5 period beforehand. You don't know which part of that your brain's gonna be working on subconsciously because it has 7 different things in it that's running through at any given time. So if you have a really big problem, I recommend my clients to focus, spend some time reading it, gathering all the details, reading that report someone gave you about X problem you have, and then going for a walk or whatever thing it is that lets you do this thinking. Whatever thing, activity you have that you tend to get ideas for, try doing different activities, and then usually you will get solutions and ideas and problems through that, and that counts as work. So just one thing I want to kind of put in that we tend to forget when we think about this problem, especially when we talk about tracking time and what time is useful and productive time
Mhm.
when we talk about how our brain actually functions. So with that, I know that's a big one to end on, but I want to close this out and we're trying to keep these episodes a little bit shorter. So they're little nuggets for you guys to noodle on and then go for walks. What's a key takeaway that you are leaving with, Judy?
I think a key takeaway that I'm taking from this is, I mean, again, go back to diagramming the sentence at the very beginning. This is a design challenge. It's not a challenge that comes from individuals being obstinate or being mean or any of that. It's not that kind of challenge. It's a design issue, and you can design your way out of it and design a better system, a better way that works. And it's going to take some trial and error. People are so scared of trial and error. They're terrified of it because of the error part. They're like, yeah, I'll try, but I must succeed. Okay, well, take little bits of this at a time. What can you try? Get some data, learn from that, and then iterate. Trying and iterating when you are redesigning a system, that's so important. It's so key. And the organizations, again, the organizations that are healthy are not stuck and cemented into one design. They are able to be adaptive because the environment is going to change around us. Things are going to shift. And for your organization to be healthy and be able to be responsive and do the mission, do the work that you're trying to do in that environment, you have to also be able to be adaptive, which requires a practice of try something out, shift the design a little bit, and let's see what we learned from that. What worked, what didn't work, what results did we get, and then keep going. It's a practice, not a perfect.
Mhm.
You got to keep going.
And
What
even
about
with
you?
that, short little experiments actually help our brain be more open to trying different things than just all of a sudden this is going to be the new normal,
Mm,
especially when we're all trying to change brand new concepts that we can't really quite comprehend what they would look like in practice.
right.
Having it run as a little experiment to try out, see if it works and adjust as needed helps your brain actually try the new behavior. Plus makes it bite sized because it's practice, practice, practice is how you actually change behavior and create habits.
Yes.
Yeah, my key takeaway I think is that plus the no. The saying no to doing things is key here. I think changing the way we work to make manageable workloads and to make it manageable for people to be able to balance their natural energy cycles throughout the day is key for any sort of success. And the only way organizations can start to do this is by learning how to say no to things, strategically say no to things. And so I just want to plus one on that because everything that I said is not possible unless the organization or company starts to get better at doing less and finding out what is the thing that actually is providing value. Because if you actually ask yourself, I know you're not going to want to hear me say this, but a lot of the work that you guys spend your time on is not actually providing any real value. So if you do less, you actually will be providing more value for your company and your shareholders if that's what you care about, and anyone that you care about, because you actually be doing better work because you're focusing on the right work. Yeah, I think that's my biggest takeaway.
Well,
Go
just
ahead.
to piggyback on that really quickly, I know for the clients that I work with in like mission driven, purpose driven, it's really, really hard to hear that. Do less. Do less when there's so many people out in our community who need help. Do less when there's not less need. And that is where getting some support from someone who can help you, again, with those experiments. It's not about just ruthlessly cutting things. It's about how can you design a way that you can do good work in the world that doesn't require you and the people who are trying to do it to burn themselves out.
And the doing less is a strategic choice about the things that are causing more drain than benefit on your system, including your people, including your resources, including whatever your whole system context is. And in the end, that is how you do more. And that is one of the hardest strategic thinking paradoxes that our brains honestly really struggle. With that, we hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Transformation Horizon. And if you did, please share it with anybody who would be interested in this topic.
Yeah, and please go ahead and subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or on YouTube. Give us a 5-star rating and leave us a review. We would love to hear from you. If you have any questions similar to this one that we answered today that you'd like us to answer for you in any upcoming episode, send them to us at transformationhorizon@gmail.com. Bye.